What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So for a while there, it was getting kind of quiet on the Switch 2 front. That is until over the weekend when a new report popped up that certainly has muddied the waters around this system, but we're going to go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about an interesting data mine that's taken place that shows that PlayStation is maybe going to make an even bigger push towards PC. And we also can talk about some of the newer games coming out this week because, well, a couple of them already leaked. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure to hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Sonic Superstars, as the Metacritic scores are now up. The game, of course, is out tomorrow. So let's take a look over on Metacritic to see where it's landed. And it's currently sitting at a 76. Now, this is on the PS5 version of the game. I think that's where practically all of the reviews happen, as it has 29 critic reviews and the others don't have enough to form a score. But at 76, we have on the high end, IGN Spain saying Sonic Superstars returns to 2D in a brand new adventure set in an all-new world with mind-blowing effects and a 4-player local and online multiplayer. On the other end of the spectrum, we have Gaming Bolt at a 50 saying Sonic Superstars started so well and with such potential, but quickly fell off a cliff due to its irritating zone design, forgettable soundtrack, and odd aesthetic choices. Now, I haven't seen the game in front of me yet. I will be picking it up tomorrow when it comes out. And I'll see what they mean here by aesthetic choices, but really I'm just looking for another good 2D Sonic game, and from what I've seen so far in the different previews, kind of feels like it's lining up for that. But one other part in here had to do with boss battles and them being not very exciting, kind of repetitive, so that could, of course, deflate some of the hype around this one for me, but we'll see. Again, I'll check it out tomorrow. Maybe we'll do a video with some of my initial impressions on it. Also, we have some random retro news here, and yeah, I use the word retro for the Wii U. I mean, technically the store shut down, the online is about to be shut down. I guess we would call it a legacy system at that point, but it also appears somebody made a purchase of this legacy system last month. You can see this posted up. This is over on Twitter from Matt Piscatella saying one new Wii U was sold in the US in September. First time a new Wii U sold since May 2022. Also, last time a new Vita unit sold was in November 2021 when 3 were purchased. It's kind of impressive. Now, the information is being gathered from Circana, which was the MPD group, so looking at retail stores across the US, and it's very possible that maybe one was just found in the back at a warehouse somewhere and then was sent to the retail store. They put it out and somebody just bought a brand new Wii U, which at this point in time, if you come across a new Wii U at retail, might be worth buying it. Honestly, just to put it up on the shelf, because the Wii U, I think, is going to be a system that down the road does become valuable, especially the different games that didn't see a large print run just because there weren't that many systems out there in the first place. So something to keep in mind going forward. But yeah, also, I guess you never know. Maybe a Wii U can just pop up in your retail store at some point and you can be one of the people in the MPD group that picked one up. Oh, and after a ton of investigation that came down to even the demo units and the kiosks at different stores for Mario Wonder getting data mined, we now know who the person behind the new Mario voice is, and we can see this posted up. This over on Twitter and was quoted by Game Informer from Kevin Afghani, who says, incredibly proud to have voiced Mario and Luigi in Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Thanks to Nintendo for inviting me into the Flower Kingdom. Now, according to Game Informer, the other credits for Afghani's, I guess their voice acting roles was Arnold in Genshin Impact, Raditz in Dragon Ball R&R, look at that, and a few others. That nothing major that you're going to be like, okay, yeah, that's where they're from. But it's the role of a lifetime there, and I do wonder if this is going to be a continuing role for them, or if maybe Nintendo just continues to cast different voice actors for Mario, depending on maybe the series, or if it's a spin-off or something. There are a lot of questions there for the future. Who knows? Maybe this is just the voice of Mario for the next 15 or 20 years. We'll find out. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this new report for the Switch 2, which is a console that we don't necessarily know anything about because Nintendo really hasn't said anything about it at this point, but then it also feels like we know a lot about it. It's that weird in-between time for consoles when we're all anticipating Nintendo to finally make that announcement, but they just won't do it because the Switch keeps selling. Well, now in a recent report, it seems like the waters have been muddied a bit because there's the potential for Nintendo to do something weird, which I guess that's Nintendo. A lot of times they do the quirky and the strange stuff, and sometimes it works out, but this one's even weird for them because the idea of physical games not being sold by them for a system is hard to believe based on current sales trends for them, especially in Japan. Nonetheless, this we can see is posted up over on My Nintendo News, where they are pointing to Special Nick over on Xbox Era, claims to have heard from his sources that Nintendo is planning a Switch 2 console, possibly without a cartridge slot, which won't be backwards compatible with the original Nintendo Switch game. So, summary, that means there'll be 2 models at launch, one with a cartridge slot and the second an all-digital version. All right, so I was trying to figure out exactly what Nick was trying to say at Xbox Era, because it sounds like, oh, one's just not going to be backwards compatible at all. I almost wonder if he's trying to say that that one won't be backwards compatible with your cartridges, but your Nintendo account, which would follow you from this current generation to the next, as we assume, means that your digital games would still work on it. Again, it's a strange setup here, and one that I just don't think is correct. It just seems like it'd be a very odd message for Nintendo to try to convey to consumers when, with the Switch, even though its concept was kind of harder to wrap your head around then as opposed to now, since we've been with it for 7 years now or so, it was a simplified system and message for them to convey, whereas in this case, you have one system that doesn't take your cartridges that you spent the last 6 or 7 years building up, the other one will, but maybe one has better storage, a different screen. It's a strange thing to not just go with one unit at launch and then do what they've done with the current Switch that's built on top of that with SKUs going forward, like the Switch Lite, the OLED, and even the red box Switch. Each one of those kind of had its own spotlight, sort of, as it was coming out, and it was easier for Nintendo to try to explain what each one was at any given time, and this would just be a very messy launch, it feels. So I kind of feel like this all-digital Switch that's come up multiple times, by the way, I just don't think it's good information that's going out there, and these companies at times will feed incorrect information on purpose just to see if it leaks out and try to figure out where the holes in their security or what have you are and try to plug them before the actual system announcements start up. So at this time, I'm expecting one system from Nintendo. I'm expecting it to be backwards compatible, and yes, I'm also expecting it to take cartridges, but I guess it's Nintendo. They went from the Wii to the Wii U. So anything's really possible. Next up, speaking of leaks, we have 2 major releases this week that are already online, making the rounds, getting data mined, and even having spoilers, I guess, shared all over the place. And the 2 titles would be Sonic Superstars and Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which that one shouldn't be a shock at all because every Nintendo Switch game just leaks early. Nintendo couldn't stop Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which was a generational release for them, so clearly they weren't going to stop Mario Bros. Wonder. And with Sonic Superstars, the reason that leaked out was, surprise, surprise, it's on the Switch, so it's the Switch version of it. Now, I've seen people mention spoilers going around, and some people were wondering, okay, well, what exactly is going to be spoiled for Super Mario Bros. Wonder? Because we immediately think of the story. You can say the same thing for Sonic Superstars also, right? But in some cases, with something like Mario Bros. Wonder, where a lot of the focus is on the gameplay, the different worlds you experience, just very unique aspects to it in that regard, yeah, that could be spoiled. Maybe you don't want to know what the 4th world in Super Mario Bros. Wonder looks like because it's this cool, like, dream lava level or something, and it's something you want to experience for the first time yourself playing it. Yeah, that could technically be spoiled. Or I guess just the ending, when Mario beats Bowser and the princess is saved. It's who saw that one coming? Although I guess we did get some interesting information, at least for Mario, which you can see this posted up by Oatmeal Dome, where they say the game has leaked onto the internet. It uses the module system engine, which is also utilized by Tears of the Kingdom and Splatoon 3. So that's kind of cool to hear that the engine is linked in some capacity to Tears of the Kingdom and Splatoon 3. There's also discussion around a large chunk of the budget going into the different animations for Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and I am curious how this game is going to score on places like Metacritic, because it does look super high quality from a lot of the different previews, and yes, some of the leaked footage is just appearing when you scroll through places like Twitter or just go to different forums. So I am excited for Super Mario Bros. Wonder. I'll be picking it up alongside of Spider-Man 2, and I'm going to just try to get time in with both of them, I guess, at this point, heading into the podcast on Saturday, where we're talking about all different kinds of games with Sonic, Mario, and Spider-Man. What a week in games. Next up, let's talk about Sony continuing their push into the realm of PC releases, some better than others, like Last of Us Part 1. That didn't go over so well, but then you get some pretty fun releases like Ratchet and Clank on the PC, and people are trying to run it off of 5200 RPM drives, and it still technically worked. But in this case, it looks like Sony could be pushing further and further, maybe into having their own platform or launcher on PC. And this is, of course, speculation based off of some new data that's been published, which we can see this posted up. This is over on True Trophies, who had the exclusive, saying recently one of True Trophy scanners, the various scanners that allow us to bring you up-to-date trophy lists directly from the PlayStation Network, picked up a new PS5 trophy list with an interesting additional platform listed alongside it, PSPC. The trophy list in question was simply titled Trophy Set and wasn't attached to any particular game, appearing to be a test list of some kind. So the idea here is Sony would be bringing trophies over to PC. And there are a few avenues they can go. I guess technically they could attach it to their Steam releases, and when you get a Steam achievement, if you're signed in to your PlayStation Network account and it lines up with a trophy you'd normally unlock on console, you would also unlock it there, which might entice you to, also get a PlayStation 5 because you can go between your PC and your console and you get the same trophies and accomplishments, that sort of thing. I'm kind of looking at this in a bit more of a zoomed out view where Sony may be preparing to have their own ecosystem attached to the PC in terms of a launcher. And in that case, you would sign in, you'd buy the games directly from them on that launcher, and it would all become basically one platform between their PlayStation 5 console, PC, maybe mobile phones, streaming. Remember, that's coming up this month. And that's kind of where I see Sony by the end of this current generation in 2028 to have at least shown their hand really when it comes to that. And they've been trying to build up this PC launcher seemingly for a while with different job listings going up years ago even. And I think for them, it makes sense to not necessarily pay Valve and Steam the 30% cut going forward, at least bank on that, because we saw Microsoft in emails mention that they were sizing up Valve maybe for an acquisition. And now that the Activision Blizzard deal is through and done, I think Microsoft's still going to be looking around, especially in 2024, for more acquisitions. Maybe not necessarily just for content, but also for platforms. And Steam, the most popular way to buy PC games, and that's an avenue that Microsoft would like to control alongside of Windows. It makes sense for them to try to buy Valve if, of course, Valve wants to sell. So that's one of the reasons if I was Sony, I would be more proactive and look to build out my own launcher. But would it work with PC gamers? Because we've seen Epic Games and their Epic store get heavily rejected, I'd say, by many PC gamers out there. Well, if Sony shows up with games that they've created to put there and not necessarily gone out to basically paywall by paying out money, of course, for exclusivity on a launcher, I think people would be a bit more accepting. And also if it launches with a shopping cart and basic functionality, something that Epic forgot. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about that Activision Blizzard deal once again. This, though, having to do with a CEO at the company for more than 30 years, Bobby Kotick, and his future now with the company, since technically they're now owned by Microsoft and Xbox, and it appears he's probably going to be gone in the next couple of months. We can see this over on Twitter from Jason Schreier, pointing out that as the Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal closes, Bobby Kotick says he'll stay on as CEO through the end of the year. On January 1st, 2024, Kotick will depart the company he took over 33 years ago. A massive change for the video game industry. And I mean, seriously, think about this. Bobby Kotick being there for the rise of Call of Duty, overseeing a lot of that. And yes, also overseeing a lot of scandals. And well, we saw a lot of court documents and accusations, all that stuff. So I mean, people, of course, are celebrating here, but also remember, he's leaving with a lot of money. I think like hundreds of millions of dollars. So he is getting the golden parachute on the way out the door. But I also do think that Activision Blizzard will be open up, I hope, for just more creative endeavors than just Call of Duty every year. I still think it's going to happen every year if possible, but I also wouldn't be shocked if Microsoft looks around and says, hey, toys for Bob, you just make another Spyro. You can make another crack. Maybe you want to take a shot at Banjo-Kazooie. We own that intellectual property. Maybe they look at the part of Blizzard that it was Vicarious Visions. Now it's called, Blizzard. It's a subsidiary of that. But maybe they want to do another Tony Hawk or something else. So I'm hoping that's the direction, as things like even Guitar Hero have been brought up. And I think that would be fascinating. just to see how they would try to pull that off with maybe some of the newer technology for different peripherals and, of course, development behind the scenes, maybe even intertwining things like AI and just a fully online service that can deliver a lot of this stuff on the fly. So a lot of possibilities there, but at the very least, people have been wanting Bobby Kotick out of there, and it seems like at least to start 2024, he'll be done, I guess, the transition of Activision Blizzard into Microsoft, that integration that will probably be very difficult at first, definitely, but then he's out. So we can see what happens with Activision Blizzard in the future, 2024 and beyond, and I almost wonder if Microsoft would then appoint someone new to oversee Activision Blizzard, maybe someone from within, because that is going to be a very, very vital role, since they want to make sure Call of Duty continues to be on track, I'm sure. And then also, how do you manage, the number of intellectual properties and the number of studios, developers, everything. So something to keep an eye on there. Bobby Kotick out, but who will be covering Activision Blizzard after? And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, would you be interested in a new Guitar Hero game if it made a return? Okay, 52% say yes, 48% say no. We had a whole discussion around this on the Spawncast this past weekend, and I, again, would be curious to see how this would work out, but I also think for Microsoft, this could be a legit pillar for Game Pass, considering it would be a live service title. I don't think they need to do like a release after release after release for it, kind of like what they did. Well, not Microsoft, but just Activision with when we saw Guitar Hero 1, 2, 3, Rocks the 80s, Metallica, Aerosmith. They were doing so many releases back to back to back to back. It was kind of hard to keep up. And they had all these peripherals. I feel like you just do one game, you just call it Guitar Hero, and then you just continue to add on to that over time, kind of like we have these live service games for, like Destiny and Call of Duty and all these things, right? But like you build on it going forward for a decade plus, and you end up with a very large library of music. And that's the biggest issue there, though, is the licensing, trying to navigate all of that. But I do think there's potential, especially to target the mainstream, maybe coming into Game Pass and being very serious about it, since they would have also probably bought a plastic guitar, maybe drums, the whole thing. So interesting stuff to keep an eye on there, especially with Guitar Hero. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Spectacular Spidey, who says, I worked at Best Buy in 2014, and going in there now feels so different. I never see more than 6 people working. Everything is changing so quickly. I miss going to Circuit City as a kid. I was so blown away by the stuff in there. I do also mention an update for Best Buy, as they did respond, and yes, they are indeed discontinuing their physical Blu-rays and DVDs. They mentioned DVDs specifically, but it seems like they're just saying, yeah, for disc-based movies, we're paring that back, and they're looking to basically move away from that to make room for other tech and gadgets and who knows? Best Buy will just try to stock stuff in that aisle that basically just has a couple of Blu-rays in it now, especially for me. I have noticed that over time, that section has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller at Best Buy, whereas before it was almost like a celebration when a new movie would go to Blu-ray, and now it's like, do you guys have this movie? And they have to check in the back, and you wait for a while, and it's like behind stuff because they didn't think to bring it out. I also have noticed the game section is kind of getting to that point too, but they did reiterate here, this will not affect their game sales in terms of then stocking that. But I don't know, by the end of this generation, looking like 2026, 2027, I wouldn't be shocked if we hear about this for Best Buy for games, and then it's full speed ahead to that all digital future. 2028, looking for the PS6 and the Xbox Series 2 or whatever. Will it have a disk drive? That'll be the big question. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. There's a new report around the Switch 2. Multiple SKUs at launch. One, though, is all digital, not backwards compatible. How likely do you think that is? And then also, what about Mario Brothers Wonder, Sonic Superstars, Spider-Man 2? Busy week. What are you picking up? And then what we're seeing right now with apparently PlayStation playing around with trophies for PC, would that make you more interested in not only a launcher, but maybe some of their future PC releases? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.